Alright, so we're going to do a collograph, which is essentially creating a print by collaging. Alright, so the first step that I'm going to work on here is kind of sketching out what I want the overall composition to look like, and then I'm going to start using found materials to begin piecing everything together. So I've got some natural objects, some paper for creating some waves. So the end destination for this image is going to be a canoe with trees upside down and being reflected. Alright, so you can see I'm just going through and tearing some paper to get a nice deckled edge and creating texture and cleaning it up with an X-Acto blade as I create sort of that base layer of textures. As you are creating these textures, please make sure that you remember not to get them very, very deep, because the heavier the texture, the more difficult it is going to be in order to get all of the detail into your final print. So even though I'm putting these particular objects in, the leaves and the cedar boughs, right, I do know at this point, as I'm going back and recording this, that they are creating a little bit too much texture, which makes it a little bit more difficult to print. Okay? So I'm just using some white glue to try and get these down as best as I possibly can. Ideally, I should have pressed them down a little bit farther so that they stuck a little bit nicer as well. Right, so much of your time is just kind of going around, kind of figuring things out, right, making corrections and adjustments as you're going, and reacting to what it is that you're seeing on the printing plate as you go. Right, so the other strategy that you can use as well, that you can see here, is creating different blocks that go together. Right, so by layering up different pieces of materials, I'm going to be able to print these with cleaner colors once I get to the inking stage of the final design. Right, so I'm assembling, kind of placing in. I haven't glued that canoe into place because I know I'm going to want to do a little bit of more work with it later. Before we start printing, we have to seal it using an acrylic varnish. Liquitex makes a good one, and here you can see the process of inking. Alright, so this is a little different than other printmaking techniques. I'm using a brush to apply the paint, strategically thinking about color and highlights and where I want everything to be, and I've inked the two parts separately, right? The canoe and the paper. The paper has to be wet, so I've soaked it and then I'm blotting it off using some newsprint, and in order to create the print, I'm just pressing down with a baren, but sometimes you need to actually just get in there with your fingers in order to be able to pull all of the color off as best as you possibly can. Alright, so this is the last one here that I'm going to do for this particular series, and when I'm pulling it off, I place one hand on the back and I gently pull the ink up. Alright, so that's the basics. So if you have any questions, let me know. And look forward to seeing what it is that you're able to produce using the Collograph technique.